For this little snippet, we're going to talk about the difference between two key terms and the similarity between them as well. First one is business intelligence. The term itself has been around since 1958. It really is talking about making better decisions, looking at technologies and all sorts of things we can do to help people understand the business better. Sometimes the term is also applied to the information itself, calling it the intelligence. BI is also described as a decision support system or warehouses or online analytical processing, data mining, relational reporting. They just got all sorts of names for it, trying to come up with the same thing. If you look at the chart on the right, that's really what I think we need to concentrate on. There's aspects of your business, things that you do as management, and how technology can help around that whole process. So while intelligence isn't very precise, it's getting pushed out of the way now by the term analytics. Again, equally as vacuous in terms of definitions. Analytics, something that is analytic. That means relating to analysis. Skilled or using an analysis. Let's try a little more precision. The science of analysis, how a business arrives at an optimal or realistic decision. Of course, if there's no data involved, it wouldn't really be considered analytics. Just some more definitions. Use of mathematics in business, enterprise decision making, horrible uses of terms. You've really got a bad problem when you can count the number of these things that come in and just look at the various pictures and the way people describe it. And I know we've sort of hit an inflection point here when we've got, here's a way to describe analytics with 3 parts, 4 parts, 5 parts, 6 parts, 7 parts, 8 parts. Wow. Sorry, just take a little pause. Worse still, this was a book that we've used in the past. I really am not impressed with it because we'll start out with the original definition of how they define business analytics. So you're picking up a book, it's on business analytics, and they use 86 words to describe the whole thing. I won't read it all to you. You can see blah, 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 blah all the way down. I'll just take a quick pause, let you read it. Then let's start tearing it apart. So first of all, let's look really here and say, information technology. Well, that really is just hardware and software. So let's call it what it is. Last time I looked, statistical analysis was a quantitative method, so there's no need to list it separately. Let's go ahead. Mathematical or computer-based models. Well, you know what? They're all models, so let's bring them down like that to help managers gain improved insight about their business operations and make better fact-based decisions. How about make managers make better decisions? Let's take the next paragraph. Process of transforming data into actions through analysis and insights. Blah, blah, blah. It's the process of transforming data into actions through analysis to solve problems. Supported by various tools such as Microsoft Excel and SAS and visualizers and Tableau and other components. So here I've taken down to 41 words what they originally started out with 86 words. I'm not impressed. I think it's really better to look at it in easier to digest chunks. So analytics, use of hardware, data, software, quantitative methods, models to help managers make better decisions. Process of transforming data into actions to help through analysis to help solve problems. And we've got lots and lots of tools that we use to help out. There's a number of different specialities that you can look at within there. Data mining, network analysis, web analytics, text mining. All of these are examples of it. Lots of different things. We can talk about using it to do pricing, algorithms, customer segmentation, merchandising decisions, location information, social media. In fact, let's talk a little bit about Walmart's approach. Walmart has an approach that they use where they take something called vendor management inventory. And that means that if you're selling carrots to Walmart, Walmart hands you all the carrot data and the keys to this little portal here called Retail Link. Very innovative at the time they put it out. Allows you to get in and look at all of the carrot data that you're looking at from Walmart. They get a profit and loss statement, and they've got 4,000 different vendors that access this Retail Link data that provides them with the same information the internal employees get. So it's got lots and lots of data in it and gets 10,000 images query. It really comes down to crowdsourcing. That's what they're doing. They're looking at crowdsourcing, looking for more ways of selling carrots faster. I have to tell you a story. While I was at Walmart, I found this little Dilbert. Now, most of you know that Dilbert gets lots of his information from actual things that happen in the real world. And this one talks about a social network strategy for our global supply chain. Kind of an interesting piece. Caught my attention, I'm sorry. Wally, who's the one that doesn't work, he says, I can't help you because I'm busy working on a social network strategy for our global supply chain. And Ted says, that sounds like something that nobody wants and nobody needs. And Wally says, that's probably why it's taking so long. Now, true story, within a couple of weeks of this coming out, Walmart bought a social supply chain, a social network for their supply chain. What they had before, if you look back a couple slides, that retail link thing we talked about, where you can get on and look at all of Walmart's data and then have different analyses provided to it, is a fairly sophisticated system, but they only get the actual output of that system. If they embed that system inside of a global social network in their global supply chain, then they will own not just the data that happens there, but also the conversations that happen around it as well. Fairly slick move, Walmart. So not everything that's made fun of in Dilbert is actually worth making fun of in the real life. The basics of what we're looking at is that once you have a collection of data in a number of places that look like they're accessible with the same method, sometimes it is the same method, sometimes it just looks like it, the users can drill into the data. The entire cube, if you will, although it's an n-dimensional cube, is accessible, allowing us to look at summaries of data and then drill down into specific transaction level detail. Let's look at a couple of specific examples. If we're in a hospital facility, we might want to look at cancer patient revenue across all facilities to see which ones are doing the best promotion there. Again, you get these n dimensions that you have. They might want to look at revenue for diseases this year versus last year. Are these diseases growing more profitable or less profitable? Hate to say it, that's the way hospitals think sometimes on it. Meaning you can view it from different perspectives and get reports like the top 10 costs and revenues at the facilities that we're operating on here. Or another example of the same kind of thing, we start out with sort of a reverse detective story. Think of what's the show? Dong Dong. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Set analysis. Anyway, so let's say we have 30,000 customers that we're looking at here, and we want to cut that list down and say not from all the list of the customers, but from customers with income of 100,000 or are younger than 30 years. So that reduces our supply a little bit. We kick that down, and that takes us from 30,000 customers to 6,000. And now we want to add the caveat on it that those customers have to live in New York. Law and Order, that's the show I was trying to think of. So now we've gone from 30,000 to 6,000 customers, and then we add another constraint on it, and they purchased whatever it is we're looking at in the last 7 days. So now that's down to 800 customers. And when I have that list of customers, I can go back to the suppliers that supplied all of those things and find there's only 40 of them. And at that point, we have to start hitting the pavement and find out what's actually there. One more example on this is a sort of portfolio analysis. If you're a bank, you can cube your customers by social status, geographic location, net value, net value, et cetera, and all of these things, and allow you to plan out your portfolio. So you would terribly generally want to give loans to the very wealthy, but there aren't very many of them. So there's a limited number of them that you can actually make loans to. Poor customers, a lot greater numbers of them, but of course the risk is greater. So we've got to keep an eye out on all that. And you can do different types of analyses that'll give you, when to lend, what types of interest rates to charge, et cetera, around all of that. Here's a couple of examples specifically out of the insurance industry. We might be looking at out-of-bound leakages where people are just making the wrong parts claimed with the wrong models, or illegal plays where people are not allowed to do checks on certain things, technical penalties, game fixing. These are all ways that you can use this analysis of data to find out what's actually going on and hopefully catch some fraud along the way. One final example here is CarMax locally here, great company. The old way of doing cars was that everybody would kind of hang around and regionally you would know what was around your neighborhood in cars. CarMax having 450 different showcases nationwide can now look and see that cars with white roofs are selling better in Colorado than they are in Michigan, and shift their inventory around and charge premiums accordingly, et cetera. Old blog on this, fairly old, but still worthwhile. It's sort of the Walmart of used cars, and the key was that CarMax is collecting better data than the competition and allowing more mature analytical techniques to give results. And then a little further, right, the real question is, if you get greater data, it tends to come at lower quality. So you don't have good common definitions of what a good condition car would be and things like that. It's just again, how to pull all of this together, what attributes specifically to include in it. So what I'm getting at through all of this is to say that analytics has got a bunch of different definitions, but they're all really hard to do. We might say that it's necessary that you have technology, necessary that you have some sort of an approach and that you get results. Maybe you have to have 2 out of 3. I don't know. It just gets very, very silly sometimes. So our goal in the class is to use hardware and software and data and models, help managers make better decisions, and to learn from the process, and to learn a little bit about Amazon Web Service in the process here. So we talked a little bit before about analysis. Let's get a formal definition: the separation of an intellectual or substantive whole into constituent parts. If we're going to look at a map, we might say that the difference between analytics and BI is largely overlap in there, that analytics might be focused more on strategy and formulation and intelligence on implementation, but none of that's really kind of useful. There's just tons of careers out there, lots of things that you can do in order to look at this online analytical processing for different stats, different statistics approaches. Operations research has always been a component of this. The start of operations research was really looking at the optimal size of convoys as we were sending them across the sea in World War II, because the Germans were really good at sinking boats, and we really didn't want to have our boat sunk on that. Then, of course, we get into these additional topics I mentioned: data mining, where it looks at prediction and discovery of things that are happening in there. Machine learning, another very hot topic today. We'll dive into some of these topics later on. All of these tend to be combined under general approaches to what's going on in the BI or analytics world. Here's a famous representation of a bunch of airplane flights, and if you watch this for 1 minute, you'll see a overall summary of how airplanes fly around the world every day, summarized in just under a minute. It's a very nice articulation. As we're looking right now, you can see that everybody's waking up in Europe, and all those flights are getting ready to take off out of Europe because it's now daylight in there, and everybody will now go over to their various respective flights that they need to take. So yeah, just a little bit of a overall clear analysis of this. I'm not sure what you do with this, though. If you're in the airline industry, it might be very, very insightful. It's not enough detail to actually plan anything on, although you'd need to have all of this information in order to do the planning and visualization that you have in order to put this out in the first place. So again, 24 hours of all of these large aircraft flights flying around the world condensed down to just about 1 minute. That's a pretty interesting little piece of insight. Now I'm going to play a little 5-minute clip of a video here that is a wonderful clip. It's an advertisement that was done by British Airways.
My name is Ratnesh. I'm originally from Mumbai. I like to call it Bombay because I grew up there. What do I remember from Bombay? Well, playing in the streets, taking the local, jasmine gajras in the flower market, and my mother praying in the morning. You can move thousands of miles away, but these images, they are always with you.
I am Alka. My full name is Alka Rani Dubey. I am 61 years old. My son is Ratnesh. He is staying in New York. First, when he told me he wanted to go to the US, I felt very excited. But when the moment came when he was leaving India, that time I was really very nervous and quite heartbroken, I must say. Today, British Airways has given me a seat on a plane. it is for my son's favorite dish, okra paratha. They will fly it to America and surprise him in his apartment. I think this will make him come home and visit his mummy. I, like every mother does, I used to experiment with different things, putting in his tiffin box. Most of the time, the other vegetables, they will return from the school untouched. But whenever I am giving okra, it is finished. I asked him, why you like okra the most? He said, Mama, my teacher has told the child who eats okra becomes best in his mathematics. My son is progressing day by day. His dreams are getting fulfilled. And his happiness is more than what I ever want for him. When he will look at the tiffin box, first he will think from where has it come. But once he tastes the food, he will know it is made by his mummy. And I am sure he will start searching for me in his apartment. I miss him so much because when he left home, he was hardly 17 years old. And from that day, he did not return home. I miss my son.
My mom had cooked my favorite meal, and she was waiting for someone from British Airways to pick up the tiffin carrier. So they sent me. After flying from New York to Mumbai, there I was, walking to her door, smelling her cooking. It was an incredible feeling. Sometimes, even when you know what's going to happen, you cannot even imagine how it's going to be. I got the opportunity to see my mother in a way I had never seen her before. She looked lonely. She looked like she sounds over the phone. I just wanted to run out and give her a hug. Mommy, I'm here.
It was a great moment. It was a family moment. Even his dad was there. We all three of us sat, we talked. And I didn't ask him, when are you leaving? I said, I will not ask you today. Let this question be for tomorrow.
First of all, I have to tell you that there's nothing more fun than playing that video to a room full of business people and have each and every one of them crying hysterically at the end of that, because it's a pretty powerful little moment. And more importantly, it also was filmed entirely with iPhones on a budget of $20,000, including the flight for the kid to come back over and see his mom. That $20,000 has an investment, and they didn't put that on TV. They put that on YouTube, same place you're watching it right now. And that has increased the volume on those routes by about 3x. So a tiny little bit of weird advertising falls into that same analytic category. So we're going to be not looking probably at anything quite that grandiose, but we are going to try to get a sense for what all of this business analytics, business intelligence, data analytics looks like.